Drowning in Debt: How to Actually Get Out, an original audiobook. There's a shoebox on the top shelf of the closet, and it's full of unopened envelopes. The woman who owns it, call her Maya. She's a blend of 1,000 true stories, and this book will always tell you when someone knows exactly what's inside them. Credit card statements, a hospital bill, something from a collections agency with that aggressive red lettering visible through the little window. She doesn't open them anymore. Opening them changes nothing, she tells herself. She knows she owes money. A letter confirming it just wrecks the whole evening. So the envelopes go in the box. The box goes on the shelf, and the shelf gets avoided, the way you'd avoid a room with a wasp in it. Here's what you should know about Maya before anything else. She is not lazy, not stupid, and not reckless. She has a job. She works hard at it. The debt came the way it usually comes, not from champagne and shopping sprees, but from a layoff that lasted 4 months longer than the savings did. A transmission that died the same spring as the water heater, and a credit card that quietly became the household's emergency room. And now she carries it everywhere, doing the mental math in the shower, going cold when the phone shows an unknown number, lying awake, doing subtraction at 2 a.m. If any part of that is familiar, the box, the unknown numbers, the 2 a.m. arithmetic, then this book was written for you, and I want to make you one promise before we start. This is not going to be a lecture. You've already given yourself every lecture there is. This is going to be an exit map. The actual mechanics of how people get out, what the research says works, and why the way out starts somewhere you don't expect. Because here's the strange, human, completely understandable thing about debt. The worse it gets, the harder we look away. Behavioral economists have a name for it, the ostrich effect, and they've measured it precisely. Researchers tracking when people check their financial accounts found that logins drop when the news is likely to be bad. Investors check portfolios eagerly in rising markets and go quiet in falling ones. With debt, the ostrich effect becomes a way of life. Statements unopened, balances unknown, calls unanswered. And ask people in serious debt what their total actually is. Counselors do this every day, and most genuinely cannot say. They know it's bad, they've just never added it up, because the not knowing feels survivable, and the number feels like it might not be. I want to be gentle and honest at the same time here. The avoidance makes perfect emotional sense, and it is also the single most expensive habit in your financial life. Unopened envelopes are where late fees breed. Unanswered calls are how payment plans never get offered. Unknown balances are how minimum payments quietly stretch a debt across decades. We'll see that math in Chapter 2, and it will make you angry. But there's a subtler cost, and it's the one that keeps the spiral spinning. Avoidance outsources your imagination to your fears. The debt you refuse to look at doesn't stay actual size in your mind. It grows in the dark, the way every unexamined dread does. Readers of our overthinking book know that fog feeds fear, and precision starves it. Nearly everyone who's gotten out says some version of the same thing about the day they finally opened everything and added it up. The number was bad, and it was smaller than the monster had become. A number has edges. A monster doesn't. Step 1 of every exit that's ever worked is trading the monster for the number. Now, let me take the self-blame off your back for a minute, because science has something to say about it that almost nobody in debt has heard. In 2013, a team of researchers, Anand Imani, Sendil Mullainathan, Eldar Shafir, and Jiaying Zhao, published a study in the journal Science that should be required reading for anyone who's ever felt stupid about money. They studied sugarcane farmers in India who have an unusual financial life. They get paid once a year, at harvest, which means the same farmer is relatively rich right after harvest, and poor, often in debt, in the weeks before the next one. The researchers gave the farmers intelligence tests at both points. Same person, same brain, different bank balance. The result? Before harvest, poor and squeezed, the farmers scored the equivalent of roughly 13 IQ points lower than they did after harvest. 13 points, comparable to the effect of losing a full night's sleep. Nothing about the farmers changed, except financial pressure. The researchers' explanation, laid out in Mullainathan and Shafir's book Scarcity, is called the bandwidth tax. Money worry is not just unpleasant. It physically occupies the mind, running constant background calculations, leaving measurably less thinking power for everything else, including, cruelly, the very planning and self-control that escaping debt requires. Hear what this means for you. The fog, the short temper, the dumb little financial mistakes you make while in debt, forgetting a due date, grabbing the convenient expensive option, those aren't proof you're the kind of person who deserves debt. They're symptoms of it. Debt makes everyone worse at money, the way drowning makes everyone worse at swimming. You are not weak-willed. you are taxed. And every step in this book that reduces the pressure gives you back bandwidth, which makes the next step easier. The spiral, it turns out, runs in both directions. One more piece of perspective, because shame shrinks when history walks in. Debt trouble is not a modern character flaw. It is one of the oldest documented human problems on Earth. So old and so universal that ancient civilizations built emergency systems for it. 4,000 years ago in Mesopotamia, the world's first cities, and not coincidentally, the world's first compound interest, kings including Hammurabi periodically proclaimed what scholars call clean slates, royal decrees canceling consumer debts outright, freeing debt slaves, returning foreclosed land. Not out of softness, out of engineering. Those rulers had learned that unchecked debt spirals eventually eat the society itself, as farmers lost fields, sons went into bondage, and soldiers stopped having anything to fight for. The Bible carries the same technology, the Jubilee, every 50th year debts released, land returned, the recognition, written into Scripture, that debt left alone compounds past what flesh can carry. I'm not telling you this because a king is coming to cancel your credit card. He isn't, and this book deals in the world as it is. I'm telling you because the shame whispering that you are uniquely broken is contradicted by 4,000 years of humans needing rescue from exactly this math. Debt spirals are not a personal failing, they're a force of financial nature, like erosion, which is why every era builds levees. And here's the quiet good news buried in that history. Our era has levees too. Real ones, legal protections, hardship programs, nonprofit counselors, and at the far end, bankruptcy itself, a lawful fresh start, with some very famous alumni, will meet in the final chapter. You are not standing where you are because you're worse than other people. You're standing in the oldest trap there is, and the trap has exits. Documented, numbered, walkable exits. So here's the map for the hour, and one important label on the box it comes in. Chapter 2, How the Whole Actually Works. Because compound interest, the force our investing books celebrated as the eighth wonder, has a dark twin. And it's currently working against you with the same patience. We'll expose the minimum payment trap with real numbers, tour the machinery designed to keep you in place, teaser rates, buy now pay later, the 400% corner of the market, and lay the two foundation stones every escape starts with. Chapter 3, The Great Debate. Snowball versus Avalanche, the two rival methods for killing multiple debts, one backed by arithmetic, the other by psychology, with actual research refereeing, plus the single scariest and most powerful evening of this whole journey, the night you add it all up. Chapter 4, The Attack, where extra money actually comes from, including a phone call with a roughly 70% success rate that most people never make. Which tools help, and which just rearrange the furniture, and how to protect yourself from the sharks who circle drowning people. And Chapter 5, The Deep End and the Way Home. What to do when do it yourself isn't enough, why bankruptcy is a legal tool and not a moral verdict. Wait till you hear who's used it, and how people who get out, stay out. Now the label, our standing house rule, stated plainly because this topic demands it. This is education, not financial or legal advice. Debt rules differ by country and situation. If you're facing collections, lawsuits, or choosing between food and payments, a nonprofit credit counselor will cover how to find a real one is worth more than any audiobook. What this hour can do is hand you the map, the math, and the reasons for hope. If you've been with this channel for a while, you know we've spent whole books celebrating compound interest. The snowball that made a janitor $8 million. The force Einstein supposedly called the eighth wonder of the world. Here's the part of that famous quote, almost certainly invented, but wise anyway, that people forget. He who understands it, earns it. He who doesn't, pays it. Debt is compound interest with the signs flipped. The exact machinery that grows a retirement account, growth stacking on growth, patiently, automatically, every single day, is currently running on your balance, in reverse, for the bank. Your credit card debt is somebody's compounding asset. You are somebody's janitor-turned-millionaire story, told from the other side. And the reverse snowball has one especially cruel property. It never sleeps, never gets discouraged, never has a bad week. While you're doing your honest best, working, budgeting, feeling guilty, the balance is quietly working too, at 18, 22, 29% a year, compounding daily on many cards. This is why debt feels like running up an escalator that's moving down, because that is literally the mathematics of your situation. Pay less than the interest, and you can hand money over every single month for years, and owe more at the end. A fact that breaks people's spirits, precisely because nobody ever showed them the escalator. So let me say the liberating thing first. Once you see the machine, the despair converts into physics. You don't feel guilty at an escalator. You find the stairs. Everything in this book from here on is stairs. But first you need to see the machine's masterpiece, the little number at the bottom of your statement labeled minimum payment, which may be the most brilliantly designed trap in consumer history. The minimum payment looks like mercy. It is the opposite. It's the trap spring. Here's the anatomy. Minimums are typically set around 1 to 3% of your balance, calibrated to be easy, to keep the account healthy on paper, and to barely outrun the interest. Run the standard example, the one financial counselors use because the numbers are so obscene. A $5,000 balance at a typical rate around 20%, paying only the minimum as it shrinks. By common payoff calculators, that debt takes on the order of 20 years or more to die, and you repay roughly double to triple the original $5,000 along the way. A television bought on a card and minimum paid can outlive the television, the apartment you watched it in, and the relationship you watched it with. This isn't hidden anymore, by the way, and the disclosure has a story. In the United States, the 2009 Card Act forced statements to print a little box showing exactly how long minimum payments would take and what a 3-year payoff would cost instead. Regulators made banks print the trap's blueprint on the trap. Look for that box on your own statement. It's the most honest sentence your bank sends you. And understand what it implies in reverse. The escape math is just the trap math, flipped. Every dollar you pay above the minimum attacks pure principal, the actual debt, and every dollar of principal killed stops generating interest forever. That's why going from minimum only to even $50 extra a month doesn't improve things slightly. It can collapse a 20-year sentence to a handful of years. On the down escalator, the first steps you climb are the hardest and the most valuable. The minimum keeps you exactly in place, forever, by design. Above the minimum, every single dollar is a stair. Now zoom out, because the minimum payment has a whole family, and you should be able to recognize the relatives on sight. There's the teaser rate, 0% for 15 months, which is genuinely useful in the right hands, and is priced by the bank on the confident bet that you are not the right hands, that the balance will still be there when the rate snaps to 24% in month 16. There's Buy Now Pay Later, the newest cousin, 4 easy payments of $39, which unbundles prices into pieces small enough to sneak past your judgment. Regulators keep finding that heavy users end up juggling multiple plans they've lost track of, which is the entire business model. It's layaway, rebuilt by behavioral scientists to feel like not spending. There's the marathon car loan, 7 years, even 8, on an asset falling in value from day one, engineered to make the monthly payment, the only number on the billboard, feel small, while the total quietly bloats. And then there's the bottom of the family tree, the payday loan, small, instant, due in 2 weeks, fee of $15 or $20 per 100 borrowed, which sounds survivable until you annualize it, around 400% a year, a rate medieval theologians would have blushed at. The business model, documented by regulators for decades, is the rollover. Most payday revenue comes from borrowers who can't clear the loan and reborrow again and again, renting the same $100 for months at a rate that guarantees they never stop. Notice the shared DNA across the whole family. Every product is engineered so the number you see, the minimum, the installment, the monthly, the fee, is small and friendly, while the number that matters compounds out of sight. So adopt the house rule, and it will protect you for life. Never judge debt by its monthly payment. Judge it by its total cost and its annual rate. The friendly number is the costume. The APR is the creature. A quick, honest word about credit scores, because they haunt this subject, and the fear of them keeps people making bad choices. What a credit score actually is, a lender risk statistic, a 3-digit estimate of how likely you are to repay borrowed money, built mostly from your payment history, how much of your available credit you're using, and how long you've had accounts. What it is not, a grade on your character, a measure of your worth, or a number that loves you back. 2 truths to hold at once. Truth 1. The score matters practically. It prices your future borrowing, sometimes your apartment application and insurance, so it deserves basic care. Payment history is the biggest single slice, which means the humble automatic minimum payment on every account, even while you attack one debt hard, quietly protects the score better than almost anything. Truth 2, and counselors have to say this daily, do not set your escape route on fire to protect the score. People stay in unpayable situations, avoid hardship programs, even avoid needed bankruptcies for years because it'll hurt my credit, protecting a lender risk statistic at the cost of their actual life. Get the priorities in writing. Your health, your housing, your family's food, and your escape from the hole all outrank the number. Scores heal. That's the part nobody tells you. Payment history weights recent behavior. Negative marks age off on a schedule, and people rebuild respectable scores within a few years of even the roughest events. Your 20s to 80s life does not heal on the same schedule. Serve the life, and let the score catch up. It will. The score is the shadow of your finances. You don't nurse a shadow back to health. So, where does every escape actually begin? 2 foundation stones, pour them in this order, before any clever strategy. Stone 1. Stop digging. The old line, often pinned on Will Rogers, remains the first law of holes. When you're in one, stop digging. Practically, the borrowing has to stop bleeding while you work. The cards come out of the phone's autofill and out of the wallet. The freezer block trick is silly, and it works. The buy now pay later apps get deleted, and new debt gets treated like the one move that can actually defeat this book. Every plan in the coming chapters fails if the hole deepens while you climb. That's not moralizing, it's arithmetic. Stone 2, and this one surprises people. Before attacking the debt hard, build a small cash buffer, a starter emergency fund. A common benchmark is somewhere around $500 to $1,000, or a month's basic expenses, sitting boring and reachable. I know, saving cash while expensive debt compounds feels mathematically wrong, and pedants will note the interest mismatch. Here's why every serious debt program does it anyway. Without a buffer, your plan has a single point of failure, the next surprise. And there is always a next surprise: the tire, the tooth, the school fee. Without cash, the surprise goes straight back on the card, the streak breaks, and this is the killer. The demoralization breaks you far worse than the dollars do. The whole plan gets abandoned in the ugh of it. The starter buffer isn't an investment, it's a firewall between bad luck and your momentum. Readers of our discipline book will recognize the moat, and readers of the habits book know the never miss twice rule this protects. Hole stopped, firewall built. Now, with the ground solid, it's time to look at the debts themselves, line them up, and argue about the order in which to kill them. First, though, the evening I promised you, the scariest and most important 90 minutes of this whole journey. Tonight, or this weekend, with a cup of something, and ideally, someone kind nearby. Open the box. All of it. Every statement, every app, every account you've been not thinking about, and build one simple table with 4 columns. Who you owe, the total balance, the interest rate, and the minimum payment. Then add up the balance column and look at the number. I want to prepare you for the 90 minutes honestly, because thousands of people have described them, and the arc is remarkably consistent. Minutes 1 through 20. Dread. Hands actually shaking sometimes. This is the monster versus number moment from chapter 1, and your body knows it. Minutes 20 through 60. A strange, cold focus as the table fills in, because data, it turns out, crowds out panic. You can't tremble and transcribe an APR at the same time. And then, somewhere near the end, almost everyone reports the same unexpected feeling. Not despair. Relief. The exhale of finally standing on solid ground, even if the ground is lower than hoped. Because remember the bandwidth tax. The not knowing was costing you thinking power every single day. The monster ran background simulations at 2 a.m., rent-free. The number, however ugly, fits on one page. It has edges. It can be attacked. People consistently say some version of, the worst day was the day before I added it up, and one instruction for the moment the total stares back at you. You are not allowed to editorialize about your character. The number is a situation, not a verdict. 4,000 years of humans, remember, plus a machine engineered by professionals to produce exactly this outcome. Write the number down, date it, and keep the page. It's about to become the before photo. Now, you have a list of debts. In what order do you kill them? Welcome to the most famous fight in personal finance. In one corner, the Avalanche, the mathematician's method. Line up your debts by interest rate, highest first. Pay minimums on everything, protecting that payment history, and hurl every spare dollar at the highest rate debt until it dies. Then roll its entire payment onto the next highest and so on down. The logic is untouchable. The highest rate debt is the fastest growing head of the Hydra. So cutting it first minimizes total interest paid and gets you out the absolute fastest. On a spreadsheet, Avalanche wins every time. That's not opinion, it's arithmetic. In the other corner, the Snowball, the psychologist method, popularized most famously by radio host Dave Ramsey. Line the debts up by balance, smallest first, rates be damned. Kill the tiny $400 store card first, even at a low rate. Then the next smallest, rolling each free payment forward like, yes, a snowball gathering mass. The logic here is human. Small debts die fast, and every kill is a win you can feel. An account closed, a statement that stops coming, a line crossed off in marker. Momentum in this method matters more than mathematics. Ramsey's version of the argument is blunt. If you were doing math, you wouldn't be in credit card debt. Personal finance, he says, is 80% behavior and 20% knowledge. Our habits book made the same bet in different clothes. So who's right? For decades, this was a shouting match between spreadsheets and testimonials. Then, quietly, researchers started actually studying people paying off real debts. And the results are the most useful thing this chapter has to offer. Because it turns out the question was never which method is optimal. It was, optimal for what? Interest or finishing? Here's what the research found. Business school researchers David Gall and Blakely McShane analyzed data from thousands of real people enrolled in debt settlement programs, asking a simple question. What actually predicted who made it to the end? Who eliminated their debts versus who dropped out? The answer wasn't income, and it wasn't the total owed. The strongest signal was closing accounts, fully paying off individual debts, even small ones, early in the journey. People who got quick, complete kills were significantly more likely to finish the entire program. Not the people minimizing interest, the people collecting victories. Follow-up work, including research highlighted by Harvard Business Review and a Kellogg team, kept confirming the pattern and its mechanism. Paying off a whole account delivers a psychological jolt. Visible, permanent progress. That abstract balance reduction never provides, and that jolt refuels the motivation this multi-year grind runs on. It's the small wins engine our habits book documented, wearing a green eyeshade. Now, the honest full picture. The same literature notes the snowball can cost real money when the rate gap is huge. Momentum is not free. So here's the grown-up verdict, the one most modern counselors land on. If your rates are within a few points of each other, snowball, no hesitation. The math difference is pocket change and the motivation is everything. If one debt is a monster, a payday loan at triple digits, a card at 29 while the rest sit at 12, hybrid. Kill one or two tiny debts first for the jolt, then avalanche the monster before it eats the plan. And if you are, honestly, the rare spreadsheet person who feels motivated by watching total interest tick down, avalanche with pride. The deepest finding under all of it, the best payoff method is the one you will still be executing in month 19. This is a marathon wearing math's clothing. Whichever order you choose, you now need the fuel, a gap between what comes in and what goes out. And that means the B word. So let me make budgeting bearable in one segment. Forget perfection, and forget 17 categories. People in debt escape mode need something cruder and stronger. The framework counselors reach for first is the 4 walls. Before any debt payment beyond minimums, your money's first jobs are food, shelter and utilities, transport to work, and basic health. Always, no guilt, full stop. A plan that starves your kids to impress a bank is not discipline. It's collapse on a delay. Everything after the 4 walls and the minimums is the war chest, and it gets split deliberately between attack, extra principal payments, and a small, honest amount of life. Yes, on purpose. The research on diets and budgets rhymes perfectly. The all-austerity plan binges and dies, and a planned monthly treat is not weakness. It's pressure valve engineering, the self-compassion finding from our habits book, keeping the streak alive. Where does the gap actually come from? 2 honest levers, in order of leverage. The big fixed costs first. Housing, cars, subscriptions that are really contracts. One hard decision here. The roommate year, trading down the car with its marathon loan, the insurance reshop, can free $200 or $300 a month permanently, outweighing a full year of latte guilt. Small pleasure shaming is the hobby of people who've never audited a car payment. Then the income side, and debt season is precisely when the overtime shift, the sold guitar gathering dust, the freelance Saturday punch far above their weight, because every found dollar is a principal-killing, interest-stopping dollar. Quick breath here. If this book is pulling for you, the subscribe button is the tip jar. One complete audiobook like this every week, and every subscription genuinely decides how many more get made. Fuel secured. Now the attack itself, starting with a phone call most people never dare to make. One more tool for this chapter, because the fight is long and the mind needs feeding. Make the progress visible. Debt payoff has a design flaw that defeats motivated people constantly. For months at a time, nothing visible happens. You skip things, work extra, hurl money into the void, and the world looks identical. The car is still old, the balance merely somewhat smaller. Compare that to the machinery working against you. Every purchase delivering its dopamine instantly, and you see the unfair fight, invisible progress versus visible pleasure. So rig the visibility, deliberately, like the behavioral scientists your creditors employ. The classic is the debt thermometer, a big dumb hand-drawn tracker on the fridge, colored in with every 100 paid off. Families report the coloring in becoming a genuine event, kids demanding to do it, the chart becoming the household scoreboard. Others do the chain links method, a paper chain, one link torn off per $50 killed. or the marble jar, migrating pebble by pebble. Digital counts too, but analog is stronger medicine. It hangs where you live. And, remember Franklin's chart from our habits book, the act of recording is itself the reinforcement. Celebrate the kills properly. When an account dies, mark it. The ceremonial cutting of the card, the statement burned safely in the sink, the specific modest treat that was promised. Dave Ramsey's show turned this instinct into a ritual watched by millions. The debt-free scream, families driving hours to shout into a microphone that they owe no one anything. And whatever you think of the theatrics, the psychology is dead right. A multi-year grind needs finish lines that feel like finish lines along the way. Your nervous system doesn't speak APR, it speaks color, ceremony, and closed accounts. Translate the war into its language, and it will fight beside you instead of against you. Now for the highest return phone call in personal finance. The one with roughly a 70% success rate that most people in debt never make. Here it is. Call your credit card company and ask for a lower interest rate. I can feel the eyebrow you just raised, so here's the evidence. Consumer surveys run year after year by outfits like LendingTree and creditcards.com keep finding the same astonishing numbers. Of cardholders who actually ask for a lower APR, somewhere around 70 to 80% get one, with average cuts of several percentage points. The same surveys find most people have never asked. Waived annual fees and erased late fees post similar success rates. Why would a bank say yes? Because you're expensive to replace. Acquiring a new cardholder costs them real marketing money. And if you carry a balance and pay, you are literally a revenue stream they'd rather keep at 19% than lose entirely at 24%. Especially if you mention truthfully that you've seen balance transfer offers elsewhere. The script is short. Be polite. The person answering controls more than you think. State the facts. How long you've been a customer, that you're working hard on the balance, that you're asking for a rate reduction to help you pay it off. If they decline, ask what they can do and whether a hardship program exists. Many issuers quietly run them. Reduced rates, paused fees, structured payoff plans for people who say the words, "I'm struggling" out loud. 10 minutes of mild awkwardness for a few points off a compounding rate can be worth hundreds or thousands of dollars, likely the highest hourly wage you will ever earn. And readers of our Saying No book will recognize the deeper lesson. The ask is uncomfortable for 90 seconds and profitable for years, and the counterparty forgets the conversation by lunch. Make the call. Make all the calls. The worst outcome on the table is the exact situation you're already in. Next, the tools everyone asks about. Balance transfers and consolidation loans, and the analogy that will keep you safe with both. A balance transfer moves card debt onto a new card, offering a low or 0% promotional rate, usually for 12 to 21 months, for a transfer fee of a few percent. A consolidation loan replaces several debts with one fixed personal loan. One payment, a set end date, often a lower rate than the cards. On paper, both are genuinely powerful. Pausing or cutting the interest means every payment hits pure principal. Months of pedaling with the escalator switched off. So what's the catch? The catch is the couch. Debt counselors have watched this movie for decades. A family consolidates the cards into one tidy loan, feels the relief, sees the freshly zeroed credit cards sitting there all clean and empty, and within a couple of years is carrying the consolidation loan and new card balances. Industry data and counselor experience agree this rerun is depressingly common. Consolidation without changed behavior isn't paying off debt. It's refinancing the symptom, rearranging the furniture in a flooding house. The tools are amplifiers, not cures. They make an existing plan dramatically faster and a non-existent plan dramatically worse. Because the 0% window also pauses the pain. And pain, unfairly, was part of what powered your urgency. So house rules if you use them. The freed-up interest goes to principal automatically, not into the monthly breathing room. The old cards get closed or frozen. Yes, even if the score dips a few points for a while. Remember whose shadow that is. And the promo window gets a countdown on the fridge thermometer, because the snapback rate at month 16 is where the bank plans to make back everything the teaser gave you. Amplifier in disciplined hands, anchor in drifting ones. Now the sharks, because nothing attracts predators like visible struggle, and the debt relief industry has a bottom-feeding wing that specifically hunts people at their most desperate. Learn the fin shapes. Shark 1. The debt settlement company with the 2 good ads. We'll slash your debt in half. Their standard play, you stop paying creditors entirely and pay them instead into an escrow account while they eventually negotiate lump sum settlements. What the ads skip? The fees are steep. Your credit takes heavy damage during the stop paying phase. Collectors and lawsuits don't pause for the program. Forgiven debt can be taxable, and regulators have sued a parade of these firms for taking fees and delivering nothing. Settlement can occasionally make sense in specific situations, but if so, the same negotiation can often be done yourself or through a non-profit, without a middleman skimming thousands. Shark 2. The upfront fee anything. In the US, it's generally illegal for debt relief services to charge before settling anything. A demand for money upfront is the warning. Shark 3. The debt eliminator mystics. Outfits claiming secret laws mean you don't legally owe anything. They take a fee, file gibberish, and vanish. And Shark 4. Subtlest. The desperation refinance. Rolling unsecured card debt into a loan secured by your house or your car title. Understand exactly what that trade is. Converting debt where the worst case is credit damage into debt where the worst case is homelessness. And title loan shops price like payday lenders on top. The clean water alternative exists and is criminally underknown. Non-profit credit counseling. In the US, agencies accredited by the NFCC. Equivalents exist in most countries. Free or cheap consultations, real reviews of your whole picture, and access to debt management plans with creditor-negotiated rate cuts. The test that separates them from sharks in one question. Non-profits start by looking at your budget. Sharks start by looking at your fear. Two more zones need straight talk. Collectors and the people you love. Collections first. General principles, since specifics vary by country, with the US as the example. If accounts have gone to collectors, know that a floor of law exists under you. In America, the Fair Debt Collection Practices Act. No calls at midnight. No threats. No lying about being lawyers or police. No harassing your workplace after you say stop. You can demand debt validation in writing. Proof they own the debt and the amount is real, which matters because collections files are famously sloppy. And negotiation is normal, not naughty. Collectors often bought your debt for cents on the dollar, so lump sum settlements at a fraction of face value happen every day. Get any deal in writing before paying a cent. One honest warning the internet meme verse gets wrong. In many places, making even a small payment on an old time-barred debt can restart the legal clock on it. Another reason the non-profit counselor, who knows your local rules, earns their keep. If court papers ever arrive, never ignore them. Most collection lawsuits win by default simply because the person didn't show up. And the loved ones, money secrets are debt's bodyguard. The spouse who doesn't know, the partner discovering the shoebox. Counselors will tell you hidden debt breaks more relationships than the debt itself, because the lie compounds faster than the balance. The conversation is brutal and it is oxygen. Our conflict books tools were built for exactly this. The third story, the camera facts, no character verdicts. And choose one ally for the journey. A spouse, a sibling, one friend who gets the monthly number and the thermometer photo. The accountability effect is real, and shame, remember, dies in daylight, at a rate compound interest can only envy. Let's assemble the attack into one page, because Chapter 5 needs the runway clear. The sequence, in order. 1. The box is open, the table exists, every debt, balance, rate, minimum. The total is written down and dated. 2. The digging has stopped, no new debt, cards frozen, apps deleted. The starter buffer, that firewall between bad luck and your momentum, is funded first. 3. The four walls are protected, the minimums are automated everywhere, guarding the payment history, and the war chest is split between attack and a small deliberate ration of life. 4. The kill order is chosen, Snowball for most people, hybrid if a monster rate looms, Avalanche if spreadsheets genuinely light you up, and the choice is written on the fridge next to the thermometer. 5. The calls are made, rate reductions requested everywhere, 70%, remember? Hardship programs asked about by name, and any transfer or consolidation deployed as an amplifier with the couch rules attached. 6. The sharks are identified and avoided. The non-profit counselor's number is saved before desperation, not after. 7. Progress is visible, kills are celebrated, one ally holds the flashlight. That's the whole machine. And notice something about it. Not one step required brilliance, luck, or a raise. It's the same shape as every system in every book on this channel. Decide in calm what you'll do in chaos. Automate what shouldn't be a decision. Make the invisible visible. And protect the streak with compassion instead of shame. For a large share of people listening, this machine run patiently is the entire answer. Months of grind, a few years maybe, then the scream. But honesty requires the next chapter, because for some of you, the arithmetic above simply does not close. The four laws plus the minimums exceed the income, full stop. If that's you, Chapter 5 was written specifically for you, and it opens with a dying general. In the summer of 1884, Ulysses S. Grant, the general who won the Civil War, twice President of the United States, discovered he was broke. Worse than broke, publicly, catastrophically bankrupt. He'd put his name and his savings into a Wall Street brokerage, Grant & Ward, run by a young partner hailed as a genius. The genius turned out to be running one of the century's great frauds. The firm collapsed overnight, the partner went to prison, and Grant, at 62, was left with debts he couldn't dream of paying, and by some accounts, about $180 in cash. The hero of Appomattox borrowed from a friend to pay household bills. Then it got worse. That same year, doctors found the throat cancer. Too many cigars, too late a diagnosis, and pronounced it fatal. Sit in that position for a second. Dying, humiliated, and owing everyone the deepest deep end there is. What Grant did next is one of the great acts of quiet courage in American history. Mark Twain, yes, that Mark Twain, who ran a publishing house, offered him an unprecedented royalty deal for his memoirs. And Grant, in constant pain, unable at the end to speak, wrapped in scarves on a porch in upstate New York, raced his own cancer to the finish line, writing sometimes 10,000 words a day, correcting proofs when he could no longer talk, his doctors keeping him alive, as he put it, to finish the work. He completed the final pages in July of 1885, and died 3 days later. The personal memoirs of Ulysses S. Grant became one of the best-selling books of the century, hailed still as perhaps the finest military memoir ever written. And the royalties, some $450,000, an enormous fortune then, cleared every debt and secured his family. I'm not telling you this because you need to write a masterpiece. I'm telling you because the man on that porch believed his debts were the end of his story, and they turned out to be the setup for its finest chapter. The deep end has a floor. People push off it every day. Which brings us to the tools built for the deep end, and the stigma that needs demolishing first. If you've run the Chapter 4 machine honestly, and the numbers still don't close, the 4 walls plus minimums exceed income, or one medical event created a sum no budget can touch, then hear this clearly. You have not failed the plan. You've outgrown do-it-yourself, and the escalation path is legitimate. Step 1. The Nonprofit Credit Counselor and the Debt Management Plan, the DMP. The agency negotiates with your card issuers as a block, typically cutting rates dramatically and stopping fees. You make one payment monthly to the agency. Debts commonly clear in 3 to 5 years, and completion rates run far above white-knuckling. Step 2. Where law and hardship intersect. The formal insolvency tools. In the United States, bankruptcy. Every developed country runs an equivalent. And here is where I want to spend the stigma, because it matters. Bankruptcy is not a moral event. It is a legal tool, written into law on purpose, on the 4,000-year-old logic of Chapter 1. Societies function better with a fresh start mechanism than with permanent debt peonage. The U.S. founders thought it important enough to put bankruptcy in the Constitution itself. The famous Alumni Association is instructive. Walt Disney went bankrupt at 21 when his first studio failed, founded the Disney Company months later. Henry Ford's first 2 auto ventures collapsed. Abraham Lincoln spent over a decade paying off his failed general store. Neighbors joked he carried the national debt. Milton Hershey, twice. These aren't excuses for recklessness. They're proof that financial death is legally survivable by design. The practical notes: it's a serious step. Real costs, real credit impact for years. Some debts, commonly student loans, taxes, child support, generally don't discharge. And rules vary hugely by country and by chapter. Which is why this decision runs through a real professional. The nonprofit counselor first, a bankruptcy attorney if warranted, most of whom consult free. The tool exists. Using the right tool at the right time isn't defeat. Now the part every escapee eventually says mattered most. Getting out is a project, but staying out is an identity. The relapse statistics are the sobering part. Without changed systems, clear debt refills, the couch again at life scale. So the end game runs in stages, and the stages will sound familiar, because this is where every book on this channel converges. The day the last debt dies, the strangest thing appears in your life. The full payment amount, hundreds a month, maybe more, suddenly unemployed. That money is momentum incarnate, and the single best trick in all of personal finance is to not let it dissolve into lifestyle. Redirect it, the very next month, same amount, same automation. First inflating the starter buffer into the full moat, 3 to 6 months of expenses, the cash that makes every future emergency an inconvenience instead of a debt event. Steady's readers know this armor. Then flowing into investing, where the compounding that spent years working against you finally changes teams. Feel the symmetry of that. Identical machinery, identical patience, identical you. the reverse snowball becomes the real one, and the interest you used to pay becomes interest you earn. Guardrails for life. The Save More Tomorrow move from our money book. Half of every future raise auto-routed to savings before lifestyle can claim it. One day a year, pick a birthday-adjacent date, auditing the subscriptions, the rates, the creep, and the identity vote our habits book taught. You are no longer a person fighting debt. You are a person who doesn't carry it. And every automated transfer is a ballot. People who complete this arc report something odd. Gratitude for the ugly years, because the skills the whole forced them to build, the tracking, the negotiating, the asking, the systems, turn out to be the exact skill set of wealth building. You weren't just climbing out. Let's end back at the shoebox. Months from now, for some of you, a couple of years, Maya takes the box down from the shelf one last time. It's mostly ceremony at this point. The envelope stopped going in long ago. Around the week she built the table and taped the thermometer to the fridge. But there's one envelope she saved on purpose, the ugliest one, red letters and all. And next to it, she puts the final statement from the last account. Balance 0. Some people frame these. Some burn them in the sink. One woman I read about laminated hers as a bookmark, so every book she ever reads holds the reminder. Do whatever your ceremony demands. You'll have earned theatrics. So, the whole book in your pocket, 5 lines. You're not drowning because you're broken. You're in the oldest trap there is, engineered by professionals and taxed by scarcity itself. And the shame is the trap's best guard. Open the box, trade the monster for the number. The whole works by compounding against you. Stop digging, build the firewall, and never judge debt by its friendly monthly costume. Kill the debts in the order you'll actually finish. Snowball for the wins, Avalanche for the monsters, and make every inch of progress visible enough to celebrate. Attack with the calls almost no one makes. Amplify with tools only if the couch rules come attached. And know the sharks by their opening question. And if the arithmetic truly doesn't close, escalate without shame. Counselors, plans, and the legal fresh start that carry Disney, Lincoln, and a dying general home. This is education, not financial or legal advice. Your country's rules and your specifics deserve a real professional, and the nonprofit ones are waiting. If this hour handed you a rope, here's the 10-second thank you. Subscribe. One complete audiobook every week, and every subscription genuinely decides how many more get made. And in the comments, anonymity totally allowed. What's your next move? The box, the call, the thermometer, or the counselor? And if you're already out, tell us what the water felt like from the surface. Someone mid-climb needs to read it tonight. Until next week, stop digging, start climbing. This has been Drowning in Debt, How to Actually Get Out.